So I just got done diving through some of my old hard drives and came across one of my first few real estate photo shoots. And wow, I'm surprised I got hired and also didn't get fired because I'm glad to say there's been a whole bunch of room of improvement. So today I'm gonna share 5 tips to avoid when you first start doing real estate. Don't make these mistakes. So let's get into these photos right now. So immediately right off the bat, the first thing I noticed when I was going through my very first photo shoot was I was using the wrong equipment. Specifically, I wasn't using the appropriate lens for this type of shoot. Typically, real estate photography is done with a wide lens, something from like a 14mm to a 17mm equivalent. And what I was using was a 24mm lens, and you can tell here that these are not wide enough and they look kind of weird. And more importantly, they're just terrible. Let's just get that out of the way because I know the editing's terrible and I know just the colors and everything. Oh my gosh. But the main thing being that it's just not wide enough. It just looks like you're looking at just like a little small portion of the room, and you can get away with a tighter focal length if you're doing something like interior design where it's not like you're just focused on showing the whole room, but this right here just shows nothing. Aside again from the terrible editing and how this was shot, this doesn't show anything. So if you go to photo number 2, same thing. It's like, wow, look at this rundown part of the house. You can't even see the backyard. You can't even see the whole lot. So again, this is probably me tucked in a corner and I can't even see the whole thing because you can't see what the rest of the lot is. And so this would have been so much better at 16mm, especially because it would have hidden a little bit of this mess that you clearly see. I should have picked up the hose and man, they should have done something about all that greenery, mud, mush stuff on the side. But hey, first real estate photo shoot. Definitely make sure you're using the right equipment so you can actually see the whole room. I know realtors, whenever I first started, were like, you know, this looks great once I got better at editing, but they're like, I can't see the whole room. Like I want to be able to see from corner to corner, you know, really show how big the space is. So that way it's just presented correctly. So if you're looking to buy your first lens, I definitely recommend a 16-35. That's what I shoot on full frame. If you're on a crop sensor camera, anything from like 10 to 16mm would be a really great start. I think that's what I used when I first started on my T5. Anything like that doesn't distort the image or warp it like a GoPro. You don't want it to be fisheye. So 14mm is kind of like the cutoff point. So 16-35, that's what I used. Definitely recommend it. Okay, let's go to the next mistake. Mistake number 2 is just over editing. I see this a lot from beginner photographers and of course me myself whenever I was first doing these. You just for some reason want to like over edit. You think that that's going to save the image or it like is necessary. That was one of my first mistakes. If I go into photo number 1, whoa. I don't even have any words because this just looks terrible. Lighting is all over the place. The colors are like saturated. The image just has a lot of clarity, contrast, sharpening, saturation. It's like, calm down. Like I felt like whenever I first started, you had to like manipulate every section in Lightroom. Otherwise it was just not the way to do it, but that's clearly not the case. Natural is the way to go. Going into photo number 2, same thing. You can just look at these couches especially and it's like, why do they look like that? Like, and I don't mean the couch themselves, I just mean like the editing. It looks like it's like really high clarity, really high sharpening, and that's what I thought you had to do. You know, when I first started out, I thought real estate photography was like, you know, high contrast, really sharpened, really saturated colors, and I still see that from companies that do this stuff in my area, and it's like, why? Just make it look natural, like how it actually looks, because if you step into here, if you were to walk into this room, it doesn't look like that. It doesn't look like, I don't know, it just looks intense and it doesn't look inviting. So natural editing is the way to go. Show you some recent examples of what it should look like with some natural editing, and I've also developed some presets recently. I'll also link up the video of me showing how I use those, and just makes a big difference because it just looks more flattering and realistic and just looks better for the home. So definitely just, you know, you don't need to over edit. You don't need to manipulate every little section in Lightroom and bump up the clarity, saturation. Honestly, things you want to enhance is maybe just the vibrance a little bit, kind of even out exposure with the highlights and the shadows. And honestly, like that, you're good. The more you can shoot more correct on location, the easier editing is going to be, and that's honestly the way you want to do it. Okay, so the next biggest mistake that caught my eye was either crooked or skewed photos. That is the number one tell that It's not a professional doing this. If you're like a beginner and it's like your first shoot, you're gonna like skew your photos, meaning you're gonna look down or you're gonna look up. Your photos are gonna be crooked, not really level. And take photo number 1 here in this section. I'm like looking up at the house. Editing looks jacked up, I know, but it's not level. It's just like uneven, and it makes the house look kind of distorted, and so you don't want to do that. Same thing with photo number 2. I'm looking down, and now all the verticals, all the lines look like this versus just being straight. It's kind of hard to do this. You want them to be straight, not, like this. So that's another big easy tell. Avoid that by simply turning on the grid in your camera or using the in-camera leveler if it has that, and you'll always have your level photos. And then in Lightroom, you can just easily go to the, what is it called? Geometry section, or you can easily adjust the alignment. But again, the more you can get perfect at the shoot by using a tripod, leveler, grid, it's gonna be a lot better, and your photos are gonna look a lot more professional. Next biggest mistake that immediately caught my eye was on-camera flash. So believe it or not, my first real estate job was working for a company that actually offered this service to multiple realtors in their area, and they trained us to actually shoot this way. They were definitely a company that was more focused on quantity, not so much quality, because they just wanted to zip through these houses as fast as possible and just do your best. That's pretty much it. But the way they trained us was to basically have our camera here and then have a flash right on top, right on the hot shoe, and then just take the photo like that, basically in like auto settings, which blew my mind. The problem with that is if you have your flash like right on top of your camera, you're gonna get weird light and it's not gonna look soft, it's gonna look harsh, it's not gonna look good. And take photo number 1 as an example, because here if you look up at the fan, you can clearly see that I was using flash, because you can see that shadow popping right there. You can tell that like the edges of the photo kind of have enough light, but then way down there towards the fireplace, there it starts to get darker. So that's exactly why it looks all messed up. The right way to do it is using off-camera flash, which is you hold your flash, you have a trigger system, you have your camera kind of chest level, leveled, you have your shot right, and then you're gonna aim it off one of the neutral walls so it bounces in and fills the whole space evenly. Another mistake that I see with flash photography, especially when it's on your camera, is you don't really have control over where you're putting it, and this is a clear example. In the left-hand corner of the mirror, you can see the flash light popping right there, and that's an immediate give of like, oh, they're using flash, and it's just not professional, because you want to use flash in a way that doesn't disrupt the photo. You want it to seem like this is how the lighting is, it looks even, looks nice. You don't want it to be like, oh, you use flash, obviously. That's you want it to just look unnoticed. That's a good way to put it. So clearly here it was like, oh, nice try. So definitely just invest in a trigger system. Use any flash. I use just a Canon Speedlight flash, and you want to just bounce it off any neutral surface. Usually it's just the wall that I'm backed up to. The closer you can get it to like the corner ceiling area, the nicer it's going to come down and just light the room with soft light, kind of like this, where it's just going to be nice and diffused, and you'll just get a much nicer photo like that. So the last mistake that I clearly made when I was first starting out is using unrealistic sky replacements. Obviously, sky replacements is a thing. It's really necessary. You don't get perfect weather conditions on every shoot. If it's cloudy, if it's stormy, if it just is like really bland and doesn't look great, you can do a sky replacement to just make it look nicer. Now these do the opposite, where it just makes it look completely unrealistic and just fake looking and just honestly really bad. Take your photo number 1. This could have been a good twilight, but the sky that I used just doesn't match the scene whatsoever. It's way darker, like based on the brightness of the sky, this house would have been like a silhouette. It should have been a different sky to begin with. And the editing should have been a lot better. So here with photo number 2, the sky is actually already edited. So I remember I would look at stock image sites and find skies that I could use for photos like this, and I would find like the most dramatic looking ones, and you can tell that that photo is already edited. So I'm basically dropping an edited photo that another photographer put his edits on, that's up on the stock site, onto my photo that's completely edited differently, and thought that would work. And obviously doesn't look good, colors are different, and it's again not the right exposure because it's way too dark. That's why these branches look really funny. Like even Photoshop like I didn't blend it well in Photoshop, so just use realistic skies. And the easiest fix for this is just going out and taking your own photos for these skies. If it's a really nice blue day with, nice clouds, blue sky, just go out and take some photos so you can use those to replace in the future for other photos that don't have that. If you have a nice sunset one day, just go out, take your camera, take some photos, and now you have your own stock library of actual realistic sky photos. And then you can just drop it onto your photo in Photoshop, replace it, and it's gonna look natural. Okay, that was brutal, but that's pretty much it. Those are probably like the top 5 mistakes that I caught whenever I was looking back at my old photos. These are mistakes you can easily fix where your photos are instantly gonna look so much more better and professional. And it's a learning experience because I didn't really have someone guiding me to do these things. I was just kind of figuring out on my own, watching videos, trying to learn from other people. And so hopefully this video can be some help to you if you're starting out. And yeah, I can't believe I really showed those, man. What was I thinking? If you're interested, I'm also gonna link in the description the real estate preset packs that I use for photo and video editing and all of my other real estate tutorial videos in case you're interested. And that's pretty much it. So leave a like if you enjoyed, comment down your thoughts. I would love to know some of the mistakes you made when you first started out, and subscribe if you haven't already. I would love for you guys to be a part of the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.